Apollo 11 and Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin were the first landing.
Humans have been examining the moon for centuries. It's always been an emphasis for scientists who intended to know about things that not only go above the Earth but affect the Earth too. We've never been able to see the stars from the lunar surface or the daylight side of the moon by eye without looking through the optics. Although it took a very long time to begin to make sense of things, it appears that we now know the moon just as well as we do the Earth. The truth is that we can only learn so much about the universe from Earth. What you can discover up close is the actual information. The fact that not everyone has access to up-close encounters does not imply that no one has ever been fortunate enough to do so. Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong visited the moon's surface during the fateful Apollo 11 mission, but a third astronaut was with them. And just before he passed away, he broke his silence and said that the moon is not what we think it is, so they weren't alone. Join us as we expose all the information he disclosed and explain how this information changes, how we have viewed the moon, and how it is impacting us on Earth. Far side of the moon. The fact that he's seen the fact of the moon, and according to him, it's nothing like the near front of the moon, things are totally different on the surface.
The moon was nothing compared to my view of home planet.
It's a dead zone unlike everything he's ever seen in its entirety. I'm now genuinely alone and totally isolated from any known life, he muttered as he arrived at the far side of the moon. If a count were to be done, I would be on it, and the results would be 3 billion, and I mean billion plus 2 on that side of the moon, and 1 plus God knows what on this side, and in a sense, that's one of the reasons it was crucial to travel to the moon in the first place. President John Fitzgerald Kennedy announced that the United States would travel to the moon in 1961. It was a significant commitment that, at the time, we weren't sure how to fulfill. Moreover, there was a graver issue. Although it seemed inconceivable, it was feasible. Approximately 10,000 difficulties that stood in the way were solved by an army of scientists, engineers, and workers between 1961 and 1969, during these 8 key years. The Apollo mission. Also, the US would have a chance at making it to the moon. The Apollo spacecraft ultimately had what he said it may be the smallest, fastest, and most maneuverable computer of its era, all contained in one piece. Many people are unaware that the astronauts also brought paper star charts to the moon and used a sextant to measure the positions of the stars, much like the 18th century explorers on the ship's deck. Only 3 people were authorized to fold and pack Apollo's parachutes in the entire nation till the expeditions begin to make sure that they're all right. In order to reduce the possibility that a single accident would seriously hurt or even kill them all, NASA rigorously prohibited them from traveling together. However, the success or failure of the entire mission ultimately rested with 3 men on board. While everyone is aware of at least some details of what Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin accomplished on the moon, less is known about the man who came extremely near to them. Michael Collins had to staff the moon mission knowing that he never actually got off the ship, becoming an astronaut. Involving the testing of jet fighters, inspired by John Glenn's groundbreaking flight in 1962, Collins applied to become an astronaut, moving one step closer to the stars. At that time, NASA was growing its crew for a 2-person Gemini spacecraft from the original 7 astronauts from the Mercury program, a group of individuals destined for the 1965 and 1966 Gemini missions that orbited the planet, including the famed lunar expeditions of the Apollo program, but also the missions made by humans to the moon and Earth between 1968 and 1972. Only 26% of Americans supported the idea in 1964 when the subject of whether America should accelerate its efforts to beat the Russians in a manned moon mission came up. Fast forward to Christmas 1968, NASA accomplished an exceptional feat by sending 3 astronauts aboard an Apollo capsule all the way to the moon. Circling the moon just 70 miles above the surface, on Christmas Eve, they transmitted live during prime television to reveal mesmerizing pictures of the lunar surface. This was the sole event that at the moment united the whole United States. The Apollo 11 mission received similar reactions. But for Michael Collins, the assignment meant more than just excitement. It meant risking his life to make it happen. After Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong moved away from the main ship and onto the moon's surface, Collins had to make sure everything was going right on his own, and he was also the pilot of the Gemini 10 spaceflight. Gemini 10 mission. Collins played a significant role in the Gemini 10 mission, which was launched on July 18, 1966. He served as the pilot of the 16th undeveloped spaceship that orbited the planet. The principal goal of the mission was to conduct challenging rendezvous and docking tests with 2 target vehicles, including a booster launch earlier in the day and broken down booster from the Gemini 8 missions. Spacewalks have always been essential goals in NASA's expansive plan for the Gemini program. This program was meticulously designed to equip the agency and its astronauts with the knowledge and abilities needed for the upcoming lunar expeditions. Lunar Module. The lunar module, when Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin began their lunar journey, Collins received responsibility for the command module. He stayed in this lone capsule for 21.5 hours, methodically performing system checks, making moon observations, and keeping in touch with mission control. The fact that remains that nobody had actually visited the far side of the moon at this point, so no one could have truly imagined what it would be like to fully hidden from the view. Collins decided to investigate that next. He served as Neil and Buzz's guardian angel in a sense, but during the time that he spent on the dark side of the moon, he had no one watching over him. It was intimidating, but at the same time, he had been getting ready for his moment for more than 2 years. Everything was planned in advance, right down to the precise place they would be at. Landing site. The chosen landing site needed to fulfill several prerequisites. The chosen landing place needed to have a terrain without many craters. A priority for the landing was clear visibility due to the sun's location, which was between 7 and 20 degrees behind the lunar module. The Apollo site selection board chose Site 2 as their top candidate out of the choices they considered. Sites 3 and 5 were prepared in case the launch was delayed. In May of 1969, when Apollo 10's lunar module approached Site 2, a crucial test took place. They took Apollo 11 to Site 2 because it indicated that it would be an excellent area to land. Moonwalk. Instead of taking the 2 hours that were anticipated, it ended up taking 3.5, whereas the preparation on Earth had made sure that everything was carefully planned. The cabin of the lunar module contained additional supplies like checklists, food packets, and equipment, making the lunar environment more complicated because you can never be sure what actually occurs in space. Armstrong and Aldrin were prepared for their lunar expedition 6 hours and 39 minutes after their landing. At 023933, the Eagle's hatch was opened. However, nothing went off without a hitch. Armstrong's portable life support system caused him to initially have trouble maneuvering through the hatch, some of the highest heart rates ever recorded from Apollo astronauts. Despite the men's physical fitness, the surroundings were unlike anything they'd ever experienced. In addition, the adrenaline from reaching the moon was extraordinary. The lunar dust was described as being exceedingly fine-grained, almost like a powder. The smell. In the hours after their return, the three men talked about what they had just experienced. It turns out that the moon has a unique fragrance despite not having an atmosphere. Inside the module, when they took off their helmets, they became aware of an unexpected fragrance. Buzz Aldrin compared it to the aftermath of a firecracker, while Neil Armstrong said it reminded him of the smell of moist ashes. In all, Michael Collins spent 266 hours in space. Collins expressed satisfaction with his seat on the historic Apollo 11 mission, an honor to have been part of it in a press release making the mission's 40th anniversary in 2009. But what do you think? Could be the moon landing be a hoax? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. And like always, we'll see you in the next one.